At JFK's Gate C-17, a pregnant black surgeon is told she can't board. The reason? A policy that doesn't exist. Passengers watch, phones out, as humiliation cuts deep. But Dr. Alyssa Carter isn't just any passenger, and her calm defiance hides a storm. Across Manhattan, her husband, Ethan Carter, is in a billion-dollar meeting. In minutes, the airport will feel the force of a CEO who doesn't lose. And what started as petty prejudice will unravel into a high-stakes corporate war no one saw coming. By the time it's over, careers, companies, and reputations will burn. The hum of JFK Airport was the kind of white noise Alyssa Carter had learned to ignore. Years of surgical residencies, long flights to medical conferences, and emergency calls at ungodly hours had trained her to filter chaos into background static. But today felt different. At 35, one of New York's most respected cardiothoracic surgeons, she wasn't boarding a flight to lecture at a symposium or operate on a high-profile patient. She was simply going home to Atlanta. Home, with her 7-month pregnancy showing under her fitted but comfortable travel dress. A pregnancy that had already been the subject of careful monitoring. Her colleagues insisted she fly first class for comfort. She'd reluctantly agreed, knowing she needed the space and quiet. Gate C-17 bustled with passengers waiting for Orion Air's Flight 623. Alyssa's boarding pass, Seat 2A, first class, was tucked neatly in her passport case. She moved with the calm, deliberate pace of someone who was used to being the composed center in life and death situations. Until she saw Susan Parker. The Orion Air senior flight attendant stood at the boarding gate like a border guard. The Navy uniform was immaculate, every strand of hair in place. The professional smile didn't reach her eyes when she looked at Alyssa. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see your boarding pass again," Susan said, her tone clipped but polite enough to pass for routine. Alyssa handed it over without hesitation. "Here you go, 2A. Susan glanced at the pass, then at Alyssa's stomach. "I'm sorry, but due to safety protocols, heavily pregnant passengers cannot occupy certain premium seats, especially in the event of an emergency." A ripple of sound moved through the boarding line. People glanced up from their phones. A few eyes widened. A vlogger named Ryan Cole, live streaming his travel content for nearly 500,000 followers, shifted his camera just enough to capture the exchange. Alyssa kept her voice steady. "That's not airline policy. I've reviewed your guidelines. There are no restrictions for pregnant passengers unless there's a documented medical condition that prevents travel. And, as you can see," she gestured to her medical clearance letter in her travel case, "I'm cleared for this flight." Susan's professional smile thinned. "Policies can be adjusted by the cabin crew in the interest of safety. I'm afraid you'll need to be reseated in the economy cabin." The words landed like a slap. Gasps came from the boarding line. Ryan's camera captured the moment a respected surgeon, well known in the medical community, if not to most passengers, was publicly redirected as if she were trying to sneak into a seat she didn't belong in. Alyssa didn't raise her voice. She'd had patients code on the table. She knew the value of controlled breathing. "Susan, I paid for this seat. I was assigned 2A. If there's a legitimate safety concern, I'd like to see the written policy." Susan's expression shifted, subtle but noticeable to anyone watching closely. It wasn't the look of someone dealing with a random passenger. It was knowing. "Dr. Carter," Susan said, the title rolling off her tongue with faint mockery. "I'm well aware of your position, but perhaps you should focus on your health instead of creating a scene." That word, scene, hit its mark. Passengers shifted uncomfortably. The implication was clear. A pregnant black woman was causing trouble at the gate. Ryan's camera zoomed slightly. His chat feed exploded. "This is wild! She literally has the boarding pass." "What's the safety policy for pregnant women?" "They know who she is. This smells personal." Alyssa's brows drew together. "You seem unusually informed about me, Ms. Parker." Susan didn't flinch. "Airline staff are trained to be aware of all passengers in their cabin, Doctor, especially high-profile ones." high profile. Alyssa's mind ran through the possibilities. Her hospital board had strict confidentiality on her travel schedule. Her colleagues were discreet, but the way Susan said it, there was an undercurrent of something more. "This feels less like a safety issue," Alyssa said, her voice calm but edged, "and more like an arrangement." Susan's smile stayed in place, but there was the faintest flicker in her eyes, a split-second crack in composure. Ryan's camera caught it. The murmurs in the boarding line grew louder. A woman in the waiting area muttered, "This doesn't seem random." A man in a suit pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. Susan, sensing the shift, leaned in slightly toward Alyssa, lowering her voice but not enough to escape Ryan's microphone. "You might want to think carefully about what you're implying. Flights have been delayed for less." The threat was veiled, but it was there. Alyssa straightened, her hand resting instinctively on her stomach. "I'm thinking very carefully, Ms. Parker, about why a senior flight attendant would risk public humiliation of a passenger unless she was very confident she'd be protected." Ryan's chat feed went berserk. "Oh, this is bigger than just a seat. She's hinting there's someone behind this. This Parker lady is in deep." The gate area's energy shifted. It was no longer just a routine boarding delay. There was tension, purposeful tension, and everyone could feel it. Susan stepped back, her smile tightening again, as if pulling an invisible mask back into place. "Please have a seat in the waiting area, Dr. Carter. I'll see what can be arranged." It was a stall tactic. Alyssa knew stall tactics. She'd used them in operating rooms while buying seconds for a critical intervention. But here, the seconds weren't for saving a life. They were for setting a stage. Ryan's camera stayed trained on her, capturing the stillness in her expression. She wasn't arguing, wasn't raising her voice. That restraint, the very thing Susan may have counted on, was becoming the most dangerous part of the situation. Passengers whispered. Some recorded. Most were just waiting to see what would happen next. And Alyssa waited. Because what Susan Parker didn't realize was that Alyssa Carter wasn't just any passenger. The terminal hum at gate C-17 had shifted from background noise to a low, tense buzz. Alyssa Carter stood a few paces from the boarding door, her boarding pass still in her hand, her posture relaxed but charged, like a coiled spring that nobody quite recognized yet. Her phone screen glowed as she tapped Orion Air's official website, navigating directly to the passenger policy section. The rule was there, plain as day. Pregnant passengers are welcome in all cabin classes unless a physician advises otherwise. Clearance letters are only required for international travel after 36 weeks. She turned the phone toward Susan Parker, the senior flight attendant who stood at the boarding door like a stone sentinel. "Your own website contradicts what you just told me," Alyssa said evenly, her voice carrying enough for the nearest passengers to hear. "No restriction for my seat. No restriction for this flight. And here," she tapped her travel case, "is my medical clearance letter for good measure. Now, shall we board?" The words weren't loud, but the way she said them had weight. Susan's smile didn't falter, but her tone sharpened. "Policies can change based on crew discretion. If I believe a passenger presents a safety risk because I'm in my 3rd trimester?" Alyssa asked, her eyebrow arching slightly. Susan's lips pressed together, her eyes flicking briefly toward the waiting passengers. She could feel the tide of attention turning. Ryan Cole, the vlogger, was still live streaming, his chat feed a cascade of comments. "She's calling out the policy. That flight attendant is bluffing. Why isn't anyone from the gate counter stepping in?" Susan straightened her shoulders. "Dr. Carter, if you continue raising your voice, I'll have to involve airport security. We cannot have a disturbance at the gate." Alyssa's expression didn't change. "I think your definition of disturbance is interesting, considering I haven't raised my voice once. But please, call security if you feel it's necessary. I'll be happy to show them the same policy you're ignoring." Gasps rippled through the gate area. A few passengers actually smiled. This wasn't a shouting match. It was something far more dangerous. Calm defiance. That was when Alyssa's phone vibrated in her hand. It wasn't a number she recognized, just a text from an anonymous contact. "Unknown. There's more going on than you think. Someone is trying to set you up. Don't leave the public area." Her heart rate ticked up slightly, a faint pulse in her temples. Alyssa's mind ran through the possibilities. Former patient? Hospital politics? Someone from the board? The way Susan had said high profile earlier suddenly felt heavier. She glanced subtly around the gate area. No one looked unusual. Business travelers, families, Ryan's camera still fixed on her. But somewhere, someone inside Orion Air wanted her warned. Her thumbs tapped quickly. "Who is this? What do you mean, set me up?" No response. She slid her phone back into her case, outwardly unshaken. Years of surgical training had taught her that panic never solved anything. Susan, unaware of the message but sensing Alyssa's refusal to yield, leaned closer. "Dr. Carter, I'd hate for this to escalate further. You have a reputation to protect." It was a careful line, half warning, half veiled threat. Alyssa's voice was steady. "And yet here we are, escalating because you've decided policy is optional. That's a fascinating position for a senior flight attendant on a flagship route." Ryan's camera caught the subtle shift in Susan's jaw. Passengers murmured again. A man in a tailored suit near the window put his phone down, listening more intently now. A woman in a red coat frowned at her own boarding pass, checking her seat assignment as if to verify something for herself. The gate area wasn't just watching anymore. They were choosing sides. Susan's voice grew sharper. "This is my aircraft, and I am responsible for the safety of everyone on board. If you're unwilling to cooperate, You'll have to what?" Alyssa asked, her tone still maddeningly composed. It wasn't a challenge shouted in anger. It was the slow, deliberate pull of someone drawing out the truth. Ryan's chat feed lit up. "She knows something. This is a setup. I bet the airline higher-ups are involved. She's baiting the attendant to say it." Susan didn't finish her sentence. Instead, she turned to the gate agent, murmuring something too soft for the passengers to hear. The agent's eyes flicked nervously to Alyssa, then back to Susan. The tension tightened like piano wire. Alyssa stepped slightly aside, enough to keep herself in full view of the passengers and Ryan's camera. She had no intention of letting this become a backroom conversation. Her phone buzzed again. "Unknown. Do not let them move you. They'll try to isolate you for your comfort. Stay visible." Her grip on the phone tightened slightly. The warning confirmed what her instincts had been screaming. This wasn't random discrimination. This was deliberate. Susan turned back, her smile fixed in place. "Dr. Carter, please take a seat in the waiting area. We'll see if we can resolve your concerns. If not, we'll have security escort you for your comfort." The emphasis on "for your comfort" wasn't lost on Alyssa, or the people watching. She tilted her head slightly. "Interesting choice of words. Comfort is rarely the goal when someone's being escorted, Ms. Parker." A few passengers chuckled softly. The shift in the gate's atmosphere was subtle, but real. Alyssa wasn't just resisting. She was planting questions in the minds of everyone watching, and Susan knew it. Ryan's camera caught the moment Susan's smile became just a fraction too tight. The moment control started to slip. "Dr. Carter," Susan said, voice dropping, "you're making this more complicated than it needs to be." Alyssa met her gaze. "No, Ms. Parker. I think someone else already made it complicated, and I'd very much like to know who." The gate went quiet for a beat, the kind of quiet that comes before something breaks. Alyssa didn't move toward the waiting area. She didn't raise her voice, but the warning on her phone replayed in her head. She wasn't going anywhere, and for the first time, Susan Parker seemed to realize that her passenger issue wasn't going to disappear quietly into the jet bridge. The tension at gate C-17 was no longer just a low hum. It was charged, like static before a lightning strike. Alyssa Carter stood exactly where she'd been, a still point in a storm of shifting whispers, recording phones, and an increasingly uncomfortable senior flight attendant. That was when Michael Grant arrived. The Orion Air Station manager approached with an air of calm authority, a perfectly pressed suit, and a practiced, neutral expression. He moved through the small crowd with the fluidity of someone used to de-escalating angry passengers, except the sharp flicker in his eyes as he glanced at Alyssa suggested he wasn't here to resolve anything quickly. "Dr. Carter," Michael said smoothly, extending a hand. "Michael Grant, station manager. I understand there's been some misunderstanding." The word hung in the air like a cheap curtain. Alyssa took his hand briefly, her grip firm. "Mr. Grant, I don't believe there's been any misunderstanding. Ms. Parker claims airline policy prevents me from taking my assigned seat. I've provided the policy. I've provided medical clearance. There's nothing ambiguous here." Michael nodded with the exaggerated patience of someone who planned to talk circles until the clock ran out. Of course. But sometimes there are situational considerations. Perhaps we can find a solution that satisfies everyone. Like downgrading me to economy for a first-class ticket I paid for?" Alyssa's voice was calm, but the precision in her words was a scalpel's edge. Michael smiled faintly as if she'd just confirmed his play. "Let's step aside, just over here, and talk it through." Alyssa's instincts screamed no. The anonymous text from moments earlier replayed in her mind. "Don't leave the public area." She didn't move. "We can talk here. I'm comfortable continuing in view of everyone." A flicker of irritation crossed Michael's face before the mask returned. He glanced toward Susan Parker, whose professional smile hadn't faltered, but whose eyes had sharpened. The two exchanged a look so quick most people would have missed it. Alyssa didn't. Ryan Cole's camera was still streaming, his chat scrolling faster now. "Station manager's here. Let's see what he does." "They're stalling her out." "This is coordinated." Michael's voice lowered slightly, just enough to create the illusion of privacy without actually moving her. "Dr. Carter, you have to understand, the crew has discretion to make safety calls. If you're unwilling to comply, I may have to involve airport security for everyone's comfort." There it was again. Comfort. The same word Susan had used. "Then by all means," Alyssa said, her tone level. "Call security. I have nothing to hide, and I'd like them to see the same policy you're ignoring." Michael hesitated just a fraction too long before gesturing to the gate agent. "Go ahead." Within minutes, 2 security officers in dark uniforms appeared at the gate, moving with deliberate steps that suggested they'd been briefed to approach carefully. The passengers' murmurs quieted, tension tightening like a wire. One of the officers, a tall, broad-shouldered man, glanced at Alyssa, then stopped in his tracks. His posture shifted. Recognition. Alyssa caught the flicker in his eyes before he schooled his expression. "Dr. Carter?" he asked, his voice low enough not to carry to the whole crowd. Alyssa blinked. "Yes? It's Officer Daniel Reyes. You probably don't remember me, but..." He hesitated, glancing at Michael and Susan. 3 years ago, St. Luke's. You saved my life. Triple bypass. I wouldn't be standing here if it weren't for you." For the first time that morning, something like genuine warmth broke through Alyssa's composure. "I do remember the case," she said quietly. "You had 2 young kids at home." Michael's voice cut in, sharp. "Officer Reyes, we have a situation that needs to be handled." Reyes didn't look at him. His eyes stayed on Alyssa for a beat longer before he straightened, shifting into professional mode. "Understood. I'll handle it." But his tone had changed. Ryan's camera caught the faint exchange, though not the words. His chat exploded. "Wait, the guard knows her? That changes everything. This might backfire hard on the airline." Reyes turned slightly, placing himself between Alyssa and the other officer, subtly shifting his stance so that he was both shielding her and appearing to follow protocol. "Dr. Carter," he said in a voice pitched just loud enough for nearby passengers to hear, "do you have documentation of your seating assignment and medical clearance?" Alyssa handed him her boarding pass and the letter from her physician. Reyes flipped through them, nodding slowly, deliberately, then turned back toward Michael and Susan. "She's cleared," he said simply. Michael's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Officer, this isn't just about clearance. It's about the passenger having the right documentation and being in compliance," Reyes interrupted, his tone polite but firm. Which she is. The second officer looked between them, sensing tension but following Reyes's lead. Susan's smile had gone brittle, her eyes narrowing just slightly at Reyes. Alyssa stayed silent, letting the dynamic shift on its own. The crowd could feel it. Something subtle but significant had changed. Ryan's chat lit up again. The security guy is on her side. This whole thing is crumbling for the crew. There's more going on here. Michael smoothed his jacket, trying to regain control. Dr. Carter, perhaps we can revisit seating arrangements once the rest of the cabin is boarded. Alyssa's eyes stayed on his. No, Mr. Grant. I think we'll revisit them now, in the open, while everyone can see. The pause was long enough for the passengers to sense victory hovering just out of reach. Michael exhaled, forcing a smile. Very well, but please understand, the airline will be reviewing this situation in full. Alyssa inclined her head slightly. I look forward to it. And in that moment, it was clear. The supposed path to resolution Michael had offered was nothing more than a carefully constructed delay. Only now, it wasn't working. Alyssa Carter hadn't moved from her place near gate C-17. The crowd's energy had shifted. Michael Grant had retreated. Officer Reyes stood in quiet solidarity, and Susan Parker was clearly recalculating her next move. But Alyssa knew one thing. Whatever was happening here wasn't going to stop at a policy dispute. The anonymous warnings kept flashing in her mind. Someone is trying to set you up. Don't leave the public area. It was time. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to the contact marked simply E. Carter, and pressed call. Ethan Carter answered on the second ring. Alyssa, is everything all right? You're supposed to be boarding by now. His voice was steady, but Alyssa could hear the faint echo of a conference room in the background. The low murmur of voices, the distant shuffle of papers. I'm at gate C-17, Alyssa said, her tone calm but clipped. Susan Parker, senior flight attendant, is claiming policy prevents me from taking my first-class seat despite full documentation. Michael Grant is stalling. Security's been called, but I'm still here. In public view. There was a beat of silence on the line. Then a chair scraped in the background. Ethan's voice dropped an octave. Which flight? Orion Air 623 to Atlanta, Alyssa replied. The murmur of voices in the background ceased abruptly. She could almost picture Ethan standing, his sharp blue suit catching the sterile boardroom lights, his eyes narrowing in a way that sent subordinates scrambling. Alyssa, he said, each word precise. Stay where you are. Do not board. Do not move to any private area, no matter who asks. She caught the faint, clipped tone of someone in the room asking where he was going. Ethan's answer was muted but clear. I'll be back when it's handled. The call ended with a single, efficient click. Alyssa lowered her phone, outwardly serene. Internally, she felt the quiet shift that came with knowing the cavalry was on the move. But she didn't notice the man 3 rows back in the boarding area who had been quietly watching her since the start. Across town, in the glass and steel headquarters of Cross Development, a very different phone call was taking place. Sir, said a voice over a secure line. We've just intercepted a call from Alyssa Carter to Ethan Carter. She's at JFK, Orion Airgate, C-17. The man on the other end leaned back in his leather chair, tapping a pen against the polished surface of his desk. Cross Development had been circling the same multi-billion-dollar acquisition Ethan's company was finalizing. Ethan's sudden departure from the negotiation table could change everything. Patch the call recording to me, the executive said. His name was Damian Cole, Senior VP of Strategic Acquisitions, and a man who specialized in turning corporate missteps into opportunities. A faint crackle of audio played through the speaker. Alyssa's calm voice, Ethan's clipped tone, the unmistakable indication that Ethan was leaving an important meeting. Damian smiled slowly. Interesting. He's walking away from a billion-dollar deal. For this. Sir, what's the play? His assistant asked. For now? Damian tapped the pen one more time. We watch, If Ethan Carter is abandoning negotiations, there's leverage, and if his wife's situation becomes public scandal, he let the sentence hang, the implication clear. Back at JFK, the gate area had taken on an almost electric tension. Passengers were pretending to scroll their phones, but were really just waiting for the next move. Ryan Cole's live stream was still rolling, his audience climbing into the hundreds of thousands as clips began to circulate across social media. Officer Reyes leaned slightly toward Alyssa. "Your husband's coming, isn't he?" Alyssa gave the smallest of nods. "Yes, and when he gets here, things will move quickly." Reyes didn't ask more, but his eyes flicked toward Michael Grant, who was pacing near the counter, phone pressed to his ear, voice pitched low. Susan Parker had retreated a few steps, whispering with another crew member. She glanced toward Alyssa occasionally, a flicker of irritation in her expression. Ryan's chat feed scrolled with speculation. Who is this Ethan Carter guy? Why did she say not to leave public area? Something big is happening behind the scenes. Alyssa's phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. Unknown. Your call was intercepted. Cross Development is listening. Be careful what you say next. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Whoever was behind this wasn't just playing at gate-level politics. They were playing corporate chess, with her as the piece meant to force a move. She locked her phone and slipped it into her case, her expression unchanged. The key now was to hold her ground until Ethan arrived. Every instinct told her the situation had shifted into a higher gear, and that meant the real game was only just beginning. Gate C-17 had taken on the strange, taut stillness of a room where everyone sensed a storm coming. Alyssa Carter stood in the same spot she had been holding for nearly an hour. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't moved out of public view, but the quiet tension around her had shifted. People sensed that whatever was about to happen was going to be big. What most of them didn't know was that the first move had already been made. Across the terminal, a woman in a dark navy suit strode briskly toward the security checkpoint, her Orion Air credentials swinging on a lanyard. Rachel Monroe, senior partner of Carter and Monroe Legal, wasn't just Alyssa's personal counsel. She was the lead attorney for several of Ethan Carter's corporate entities, and when Rachel moved, people usually got out of her way. Her phone was still pressed to her ear as she walked. "Yes, get the injunction paperwork drafted now. We'll file if anyone tries to move her out of the public space and find out exactly who authorized this gate-level action." Rachel's other hand tightened on her briefcase. Alyssa hadn't asked for Rachel to come. Ethan had. And when Ethan called, Rachel cleared her schedule. Back at Gate C-17, Susan Parker stood just off to the side, phone in hand. Her posture was still polished, chin high, uniform immaculate. But her eyes flicked toward the gate counter where the gate agent had just received a secure message. The agent hesitated, then approached Susan. "Ms. Parker, we've received instruction from corporate. Effective immediately, you are to step back from your operational duties for this flight. You're being placed on temporary reassignment." A few passengers overheard. Whispers spread like wildfire. Ryan Cole's live stream caught the exact moment the words "temporary reassignment" left the agent's lips. Susan's professional smile didn't crack, not even for a second. She gave a small nod, her voice cool. Understood. To the casual observer, she looked unshaken. But as she stepped away from the gate door, she slid her phone out, unlocking it with a quick swipe. A new message was waiting. Unknown. Hold your position. Support from above is in motion. Do not concede further. Susan's fingers curled slightly around the phone. Her eyes flicked briefly toward Michael Grant across the gate area, but his expression was unreadable. It could be him, or it could be someone even higher in the food chain. Rachel Monroe arrived at the gate like a weather front, calm, collected, but with an unmistakable force behind her presence. "Dr. Carter." Her voice was professional, but there was an undertone of personal concern. "I'm here on behalf of your husband." Alyssa inclined her head slightly. "Rachel." Rachel turned her attention to Michael Grant, who had drifted closer again, his phone still in his hand. "Mr. Grant, I'm counsel for Dr. Carter. We'll be reviewing all actions taken by Orion Air staff at this gate today. I suggest you ensure all communications, policy directives, and recordings are preserved. A litigation hold is now in effect. Michael's jaw tightened slightly. Ms. Monroe, there's no need for— There's every need, Rachel interrupted smoothly. You've interfered with a paying passenger's boarding rights without policy basis, ignored provided medical clearance, and escalated to security under questionable grounds. That's exposure on multiple fronts. Passengers were pretending not to listen, but every ear was tuned to the conversation. Susan Parker stood a few feet away, seemingly removed from operations, but still within line of sight. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown. The optics are bad, but this will pass. You will not be hung out to dry. Her lips pressed together just slightly. Whoever was behind the messages wasn't worried about public perception. They were focused on the internal power structure. Rachel shifted her stance, her tone shifting from ice to steel. Mr. Grant, I recommend you clarify immediately whether Ms. Parker's reassignment is intended to resolve this matter or whether we should escalate to corporate directly. Ethan Carter is en route. He will be expecting answers. Michael's eyes flicked, just for a moment, to Susan. It was the smallest tell, but Alyssa caught it. Rachel did too. Susan's phone buzzed a third time. Unknown. Do not admit fault. Do not apologize. You will be protected. Her heartbeat quickened. Not from fear, but from the realization that she was no longer just a flight attendant caught in a gate dispute. She was a piece on someone else's chessboard. Rachel stepped closer to Alyssa, her voice low but audible enough for those nearest to catch. Stay in place. Do not engage privately with anyone. This is shifting into a corporate-level move. Alyssa nodded once, her posture as composed as ever. Across the gate, Ryan's live stream chat exploded. Lawyer just showed up. This is getting way bigger. Who is texting the flight attendant? And just under the noise, the game continued. Quiet, precise, and about to get very loud. Michael Grant's composure was slipping. He stood a few paces from the boarding gate, his phone in his hand, eyes darting between Rachel Monroe, Alyssa Carter, and the slowly growing crowd at Gate C-17. The moment Rachel mentioned Ethan Carter's name, the shift was visible. The station manager's confident posture stiffened, his expression tightened. He knew who Ethan was. CEO of Orion Air's holding company, a man whose voice could end careers with a single directive. And now, Ethan wasn't just involved. He was on his way to JFK. Michael's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Susan Parker or anyone in his direct chain. It was a number he didn't recognize. The message was short, pointed. Unknown. Damage control is critical. Keep her contained until new instructions arrive. He swallowed hard. The anonymity of the sender made his skin crawl. Meanwhile, just a few meters away, Ryan Cole's live stream was exploding. The vlogger had been casually streaming when the situation started, but now his audience counter ticked into the hundreds of thousands. His feed was being clipped, shared, and mirrored across platforms. The angle wasn't perfect. Most of it captured Alyssa's calm stance, Susan Parker's brittle professionalism, Rachel Monroe's sharp interjections. But the story was perfect for social media. Pregnant black woman denied her first-class seat. Flight attendant reassigned mid-boarding. Lawyer arrives. Station manager flustered. Within minutes, hashtags began popping up. @Orion Air Incident, @Gate C-17 Drama. Justice. For Alyssa, passengers at other gates were starting to murmur, checking their own phones. The ripple effect was spreading. But somewhere else, someone was watching with a different agenda. On a private server, a troll account with an unusually well-resourced backend began amplifying Ryan's clips. It wasn't just reposting them, it was strategically boosting them with targeted keywords. One clip, Rachel Monroe stepping between Alyssa and Michael, was pushed to the top of trending lists with the caption, "Ethan Carter's wife disrupts boarding at JFK. Is this how billion-dollar CEOs operate?" The subtle shift in framing didn't go unnoticed. While the organic conversation online leaned toward sympathy for Alyssa, this campaign was threading a new narrative. Chaos follows the Carters. The account used a hashtag that hadn't yet caught on. #CarterCrisis. Back at the gate, Michael's phone buzzed again. This time it was from corporate PR. "Michael, what's going on at C-17? We've got trending hashtags, and now someone's pushing a Carter crisis narrative. Are you telling me Ethan Carter's involved in whatever this is?" Michael tried to keep his voice steady. "He's on his way here." There was a sharp exhale on the other end. "Do you have any idea how bad this looks? Get in front of it before he arrives." Michael hung up, wiping his palm against his jacket. Every instinct told him this wasn't just a gate incident anymore. It was a public relations firestorm, and somewhere out there, someone was pouring gasoline on it. Across the terminal, Rachel was still holding position near Alyssa. Her phone buzzed. This time, a secure notification from the Carter corporate media monitoring system. Rachel's eyes narrowed as she scanned the trending topics. Orion Air Incident. Predictable. Justice. For Alyssa. Expected. Carter Crisis. New. Artificial. Rachel's mind worked quickly. Someone wasn't just watching. They were using this incident to undercut Ethan's credibility in real time. She glanced at Alyssa. "Stay steady. This is getting spun in more than one direction." Alyssa's expression didn't change. "Ethan's expecting that." Ryan's chat feed had picked up on the split narratives too. "Why is there a Carter crisis tag? Feels like someone is pushing that." "This smells like corporate sabotage." In a glass tower across the city, Damian Cole at Cross Development leaned back in his chair as the trending charts refreshed on his monitor. The Carter crisis tag was performing exactly as intended. He glanced at his assistant. "Push more engagement. Let the public think this is about a CEO abandoning a billion-dollar deal for a gate dispute. Optics are everything." At gate C-17, Michael's phone buzzed again. This time, the message was from the same unknown number as before. Unknown. "Trending narrative is favorable. Hold position. Do not let Carter control the optics when he arrives." Michael felt his stomach twist. He looked at Susan Parker, who was still standing off to the side, posture stiff but expression unreadable. She was still in uniform, still tethered to the chain of command that had just reassigned her. And she still looked like she knew something he didn't. The crowd at the gate was buzzing louder now. Ryan's live stream viewers had crossed 500,000. Hashtags were moving faster than corporate PR could track. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Ethan Carter was on his way. The atmosphere at Gate C-17 had shifted from tense curiosity to electric anticipation. Phones were out everywhere now, some discreet, some openly recording. Ryan Cole's live stream had crossed 600,000 live viewers, and his audience was spamming a single phrase in the chat. "Where's Ethan?" They didn't have to wait long. The crowd at the far end of the terminal parted instinctively as Ethan Carter appeared, walking with the calm precision of a man who didn't rush for anyone. His suit was immaculate, dark charcoal with a crisp white shirt. No tie. He hadn't come for ceremony. He'd come for business. His expression was neutral, but there was a cold focus in his eyes that made people step aside without a word. Behind him, two members of Orion Air's executive security detail followed at a respectful distance, not crowding him, but clearly marking his presence as someone who moved with institutional authority. Michael Grant saw him first. The station manager's stomach twisted, his professional smile faltering for just a heartbeat before he smoothed it back into place. "Mr. Carter," Michael began, stepping forward. Ethan didn't break stride. "Mr. Grant," he said, his voice cool, clipped. "Explain why my wife is still standing at this gate and not in her assigned seat." Michael's throat went dry. "There was a miscommunication." "There is no miscommunication," Ethan cut in. Voice still even, but now with the sharp edge of someone who had no patience for rehearsed excuses. "What there is a policy violation, a public relations disaster, and a rapidly growing trending narrative that your department has failed to contain." Passengers could feel the shift. Even without raising his voice, Ethan radiated authority in a way that was almost physical. Ryan's camera tracked him, his viewers flooding the chat. This is CEO energy, 100%. He's not even angry, just surgical. Michael's done. Rachel Monroe stepped forward, briefing Ethan quickly but precisely. Susan Parker reassigned mid-boarding. Michael attempted containment. Social media split. Justice for Alyssa is trending, but Carter crisis is being pushed artificially, likely coordinated. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly. Carter crisis? Rachel nodded once. Cross-development level of coordination. Ethan turned his gaze back to Michael. Who authorized gate actions against my wife? Michael shifted uncomfortably. I was informed by... He hesitated. Ethan's expression didn't change. By whom, Mr. Grant? Before Michael could answer, one of Ethan's security aides approached, murmuring something low in his ear. Ethan listened without expression, then looked back at Michael. Interesting, Ethan said calmly. Because I've just been informed that Orion Air's Gate Operations Division has received 3 separate operational safety grants in the last 12 months, all routed through shell entities, all traced back to cross-development. The gate fell silent. Even passengers who didn't understand the full implication could feel the weight of the revelation. Ryan's chat feed went wild. Wait, what? Cross-dev is connected. This goes way higher than a flight attendant. They're using the airline as leverage? Michael's face drained of color. Mr. Carter, Ethan held up a hand, silencing him without raising his voice. Save it. I'm not interested in excuses. I'm interested in facts. And the fact is, a competitor with an active interest in derailing my acquisition deal is now tied financially to the airline that just attempted to humiliate my wife. Susan Parker, still standing at the periphery, felt her phone buzz again. She glanced down at the message. Unknown. Maintain position. Do not break. Support is still coming. Her pulse spiked. If cross-development's influence was involved, then the pressure on her wasn't coming from Michael alone. Ethan turned slightly, his voice carrying just enough for the surrounding passengers to hear. Mr. Grant, when a company accepts outside money, especially from competitors, it inherits their risk profile. It also inherits their exposure. You should have considered that before this incident. Rachel stepped in smoothly. We'll need full documentation of every funding source into gate operations for the last 24 months. If it's not provided voluntarily, we'll obtain it via subpoena. Michael's voice was tight. You have no grounds. Rachel's faint smile was almost pitying. Public humiliation of a paying passenger, who happens to be the spouse of your company's CEO, while accepting undisclosed funding from a direct competitor. We'll find plenty of grounds. The passengers watching didn't understand corporate law, but they didn't need to. The optics were devastating. Ryan's chat feed scrolled in a frenzy. Cross-dev in bed with the airline? This is like watching a movie unfold in real time. Ethan is dismantling them at the gate. Ethan took a step closer to Michael. His voice was still calm, almost conversational, but every word landed like a hammer. You have one opportunity, Mr. Grant. Resolve this. Publicly, now, or I will resolve it for you, and you will not like my method. Michael's mouth opened, closed. His eyes flicked toward Susan, toward the gate agent, toward the security officers still watching quietly. He could feel his options collapsing. In the background, Susan's phone buzzed once more. Unknown. Hold. Everything changes in the next hour. She exhaled slowly, her professional mask still in place. She didn't know whether to feel reassured or terrified. At Gate C-17, the storm had arrived, and for the first time, everyone understood this wasn't just about a seat. It was about power, influence, and the kind of connections that could bring entire corporations to their knees. The silence at Gate C-17 after Ethan Carter's words was thick enough to cut through. The passengers could feel the shift. Authority had flipped. What had started as a dispute over a boarding pass was now a public stage where careers and reputations were on the line. Ethan glanced at Rachel Monroe, who gave a subtle nod. She stepped forward, her voice firm and precise. Effective immediately. Susan Parker is relieved of all operational duties pending internal investigation. This will be logged as a formal suspension. The gate agent froze for a beat before printing the paperwork. A few passengers nearby exchanged wide-eyed glances. Ryan Cole's live stream audience exploded in comments. "Suspended on the spot? This is going nuclear. She's done. Done!" Susan Parker stood straighter, her uniform still pristine. If she was shaken, she didn't show it. Her phone buzzed again, but she didn't check it. For the first time, her composure was less about professionalism and more about survival. Ethan's gaze shifted to Michael Grant. "As for you, Mr. Grant, Station Manager, JFK Gate Operations, you are now subject to internal review. Effective immediately, you are relieved of active duty until the investigation is complete. You will remain on site for questioning." Michael's face blanched. "Mr. Carter, Ethan cut him off with quiet finality. "I'm not here to negotiate, Mr. Grant. This is not a discussion. You will comply." Passengers could feel the temperature drop. Even those who had doubted Alyssa earlier were now realizing the imbalance of power. Ethan turned to Rachel. "Prepare an alternate transport. I don't want Alyssa on this flight." Rachel nodded, already dialing. "Atlantic Airways Executive Fleet has availability. We can have a private jet prepped within 90 minutes. The passengers' whispers grew louder. Ryan's live stream chat went into overdrive. "He's pulling a private jet? This is flexing without flexing." Michael's career is over. Alyssa remained calm. She hadn't asked for any of this spectacle, but she wasn't going to decline an option that kept her both safe and visible. Michael stood frozen for a moment, trying to process how quickly control had shifted. His phone buzzed sharply in his hand. The number flashing on the screen was one he recognized instantly, and his stomach dropped. William Cross. Michael hesitated before answering. "Mr. Cross." William Cross's voice was low, precise, and dangerous. "You listen to me very carefully, Michael. You will say nothing. You will confirm nothing. Do you understand?" Michael's throat tightened. They're investigating. Carter's here in person. He's dismantling—" "Michael," William's tone hardened. "If you want your career to survive the week, you will keep your mouth shut. If you mention cross-development in any context, your career ends today, and that's the best-case scenario." Michael felt cold sweat gather at the back of his neck. His eyes flicked toward Ethan, who was still speaking quietly with Rachel. "Mr. Cross, I don't know how long I can—" "You'll manage," William cut in. "This is bigger than you, and it's not over." The line went dead. Michael lowered his phone, his mind racing. He was caught between two storms, Ethan Carter in front of him, William Cross in his ear. The passengers might see him as cornered, but the truth was far more dangerous. He was now a liability to everyone involved. Susan Parker's eyes met his for the briefest moment. She didn't need to say anything. Her phone had been buzzing all day with the same kind of warnings. They were both in deep. Ethan turned back toward the crowd, his voice calm but commanding. "Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your patience. Orion Air will accommodate all passengers on Flight 623 with an alternate crew. There will be a delay, but your safety and dignity are paramount." Passengers murmured, some nodding, some filming, all of them aware they were witnessing something rare. A CEO addressing them directly, in person, at a gate. Ryan's live stream caught every second. His chat scrolled endlessly. "This is insane. He's running the gate like a courtroom." Cross is definitely involved. Look at Michael's face. This is a bigger conspiracy than anyone thought. Rachel returned, her voice low but certain. "Atlantic's executive jet will be wheels up in 90 minutes. They'll clear a secure path for Alyssa." Ethan gave a brief nod, then looked to Alyssa. "You'll be boarding separately. I don't want you on this aircraft." Alyssa inclined her head slightly. She trusted Ethan's instincts. As the crowd shifted, Michael stood rooted in place, his phone still heavy in his hand. The echo of William Cross's voice was still in his ears. And somewhere, deep inside, he knew. This wasn't just about a suspended flight attendant or a PR nightmare at JFK. This was about the kind of power that didn't just ruin careers, it ended them. Dui day la chung tin, ho qua cup hei tong. Mu bung fat. Tip noi chung tan, hai mum nok swam tu. Gate si sidin had quieted slightly, but the sense of something larger moving beneath the surface had only grown. Ethan Carter stood at the periphery now, speaking in low tones with Rachel Monroe, while Alyssa remained seated, visible to everyone. Exactly as planned. This wasn't just a public incident anymore. Ethan's instincts told him it was an attack. And in his world, attacks rarely came without coordination. As Rachel finished briefing him on the trending narratives, Orion Air incident holding steady, but #Carter crisis still being artificially boosted, Ethan's expression hardened. "This isn't organic," he said. "It's a precision strike." Rachel's voice was low. "Against Alyssa?" Ethan shook his head slightly. "Against Carter Global Holdings. The billion-dollar deal we're finalizing is scheduled to close in 48 hours. The timing isn't coincidence. Someone wants instability, and they're using her as leverage." Rachel's eyes narrowed. Cross-development. Ethan's gaze was steady. And possibly someone feeding them from the inside. Security Chief Daniel Reyes approached quietly, handing Ethan a slim folder. "Preliminary intel, sir. Your request from 15 minutes ago." Ethan flipped it open. Inside were photos, timestamps, and an itinerary Michael Grant had not expected anyone to have. The first image was clear. Michael Grant meeting William Cross at a private lounge 2 days before the JFK incident. Rachel glanced over Ethan's shoulder, her expression sharp. That's enough to suggest coordination, but not enough to prove motive. Ethan closed the folder. Motives are irrelevant at this stage. Optics are what matter, and the optics are damning. Meanwhile, Michael stood across the gate, phone in hand. The weight of his earlier call with William Cross still pressing on him. He hadn't told Ethan about the meeting, and now it was only a matter of time before someone else did. Susan Parker watched him from a distance. She didn't know the full details, but she knew enough to recognize when someone was trapped between two powers with no exit. Ethan's security aide approached again, lowering his voice. "There's something else. We believe Alyssa's travel schedule was leaked in advance. No random harassment could be this perfectly timed to her presence at JFK." Rachel's brow furrowed. "Who had access?" The aide hesitated. "All travel manifests for senior executives' families are restricted to Carter Global Holdings' inner operations team. Less than 10 people." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then one of them is compromised." The implication landed hard. Carter Global Holdings wasn't just under pressure from cross-development. They were being undercut from inside their own walls. Rachel glanced at Ethan. "You think someone on the inside tipped Cross to Alyssa's exact movements?" Ethan's voice was controlled, but there was an edge beneath. "I don't think. I know. Alyssa's travel wasn't even logged in Orion Air's passenger priority system until 36 hours ago. Cross was ready before that." Rachel straightened. "We'll need an internal audit. Discreetly." Ethan nodded. "Start with anyone who had access to her security details, routing, and timing." Back at the gate, Ryan Cole's live stream picked up another shift. Ethan had stepped a few feet away from the crowd, speaking quietly into his phone. Ryan's chat immediately erupted. He's on the phone again, probably calling the board. Who else thinks someone in his own company leaked info? Cross is playing dirty. This is corporate espionage. The speculation was feeding itself now. Every clipped exchange, every half-heard phrase was being amplified across social media. On the 47th floor of Carter Global Holdings' Manhattan headquarters, 2 senior executives were already watching the live stream on a muted screen. One of them, a man in his early 50s with a sharp, calculating expression, turned to his colleague. If he digs too deep before the deal closes, it could destabilize everything. His colleague didn't respond, but the look in his eyes confirmed the tension. If Ethan suspected betrayal inside the company, the ripples would extend far beyond Orion Air. Back at JFK, Ethan ended his call, his voice crisp. "Rachel, Titan Communications. Anyone with access to Alyssa's itinerary, freeze their credentials. I want to know who's still logging into the executive portal. Rachel's lips pressed into a thin line. You think it's someone high up? Ethan's gaze flicked briefly toward the skyline, visible through the glass windows of the terminal. If it were low level, Cross wouldn't risk being so bold. Passengers continued to wait, unaware of the scale of what was unfolding. To them, it was a gate delay with corporate theatrics. But to those in the know, the events at Gate C-17 were the surface ripples of a much deeper current. In a private office at Cross Development, William Cross leaned back in his chair, watching the same feed. A faint smile played at the corners of his mouth. His assistant approached cautiously. The push on Carter Crisis is holding, but the investigation into the leak, Cross raised a hand. Let them look. By the time they circle back to their leak, the deal will be too unstable to close cleanly. At Gate C-17, Ethan looked once more toward Alyssa, then at Rachel. Whoever leaked her itinerary will be exposed, but for now, we focus on containment. The deal closes in 2 days. We cannot let Cross control the narrative between now and then. Rachel nodded. Understood. We'll lock it down. By the time the clock at JFK hit 3:45 p.m., the incident at Gate C-17 had escaped the confines of the airport and flooded into the wider world. Ryan Cole's live stream had been mirrored on multiple platforms. Every clip, Susan Parker's reassignment, Michael Grant's visible discomfort, Ethan Carter's calm but surgical confrontation, was now part of a viral narrative that moved too fast for corporate PR to contain. Within hours, the headlines started appearing. Atlantic Airways faces PR meltdown over first-class dispute at JFK. Justice. For Alyssa trends as CEO's wife confronts airline staff, Carter global deal in question. Amid airline controversy. The hashtags #Justice for Alyssa and #Orion Air Incident dominated the trending boards. Atlantic Airways stock opened steady in the morning, but by the afternoon, it was in freefall, dropping nearly 14% in 3 hours. Calls for boycott poured in. Passengers posted their own grievances, some legitimate, some opportunistic, all under the same tag. A groundswell of public anger was forming, and it wasn't just about Alyssa anymore. It was about every incident of disrespect people felt when traveling. In a conference room on the 48th floor of Carter Global Holdings, Ethan Carter and Rachel Monroe sat at the head of a table crowded with media strategists and legal advisors. This isn't just about defending Alyssa, Rachel said, scanning the flood of data on her tablet. This is about controlling the narrative before cross-development drives it where they want it. Ethan nodded. We don't play defense. We play offense. Rachel, I want the full recording of the incident at Gate C-17, unedited, time-stamped, verified. Release it to the press before Cross spins it. One of the strategists hesitated. Won't that escalate things? Ethan's gaze was steady. It will clarify them. And that's worse for Cross than escalation. The media team moved fast. Within 40 minutes, the full video, from Ryan Cole's first frame to Ethan's public statements, was released through official channels. It was crisp, undeniable, and devastating for Atlantic Airways gate operations. Public support surged. Hashtags that had been simmering suddenly caught new fire. Stand with Alyssa. Carter clears the air. Ryan's audience exploded again as his original live stream was reframed as the definitive documentation of the event. But while Carter Global's strategy gained ground, William Cross was already countering. From a secure office inside Cross Development, he leaned forward, scanning a prepared briefing. The sympathy wave for Alyssa is too high. Time to take it down a notch. A senior communications operative nodded. We've seeded 3 narratives. The most effective will be the pregnancy privilege angle, framed as Alyssa using her pregnancy for special treatment. We'll make it look organic. Cross's smile didn't reach his eyes. Make sure the accounts look authentic. No direct corporate fingerprints. I want this to feel like it's coming from the public. Within an hour, new posts started appearing, carefully framed, seemingly from random travelers and commentators. We all feel bad for her. But should pregnancy give you the right to delay a flight for everyone else? If she wasn't the CEO's wife, would anyone care? This seems like privilege disguised as activism. A new hashtag began creeping upward. @PregnancyPrivilege. Rachel saw it the moment the monitoring dashboard pinged. Her voice tightened. Ethan, they're attacking her credibility. This isn't just criticism of the airline, they're going after her personally. Ethan's expression didn't change, but his voice cooled. Cross is desperate. That means we're winning. But we don't underestimate this move. Rachel leaned forward. The emotional tone online is swinging. Sympathy is being undercut by this narrative. We need to respond before the swing becomes a collapse. The mood online began to fracture. Ryan Cole's chat, once overwhelmingly supportive, now had dissenters. I support her, but maybe she is using her position? I don't like this narrative. Feels manipulative. Cross is absolutely behind this. Look at the timing. The emotional wave that had been building in Alyssa's favor started to dip. The public's mood was shifting, dragged down by a well-funded counteroffensive. In a quiet moment, Alyssa scrolled through her own phone. She saw the wave turning. She knew how these things worked. Public opinion was fickle, and even the most obviously wronged party could be recast as the villain with the right push. Ethan stepped beside her. They're going after you personally. Don't let it shake you. This isn't about you. It's about the deal. And I'm not letting them win. Her voice was calm. Then we fight it on every front. Legal, media, and at the table. Ethan's lips curved slightly. Good, because the next move is ours. The storm of public opinion had been raging for 2 days straight. Hashtags rose and fell. Cross-Development's counter-narratives kept trying to sink Alyssa's credibility, but Carter Global Holdings refused to retreat. Now, Ethan Carter was ready to flip the board. In the media hall of a Manhattan hotel, reporters were packed shoulder to shoulder. The joint press conference had been called by Carter Global Holdings and Atlantic Airways, a pairing that alone was enough to electrify the business press. Rachel Monroe stood off to the side, calm and unreadable, while Ethan adjusted his tie at the podium. Beside him, the visibly uncomfortable CEO of Atlantic Airways scanned the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ethan began, his tone measured, "there has been much speculation in the past 48 hours regarding the events at JFK. Today, we will clarify everything and begin corrective action." The room quieted instantly. Rachel tapped her tablet. A large screen behind Ethan lit up with documents, transaction records, time-stamped emails, and payment logs. "These," Ethan said, "are verified financial transfers from cross-development shell entities into accounts connected to Atlantic Airways gate operations. And here," he tapped the screen, "is the meeting record of Michael Grant, station manager at JFK, with William Cross 2 days before the incident." Gasps rippled through the press corps. The Atlantic Airways CEO visibly tensed. These transactions were neither disclosed nor authorized through proper corporate channels. The conclusion is unavoidable. There was deliberate interference at JFK Gate C-17 designed to create a public incident with my wife, Dr. Alyssa Carter, as the catalyst. The Atlantic Airways CEO stepped forward, his voice tight but firm. "Atlantic Airways does not condone any action designed to humiliate or endanger passengers. Effective immediately, we are restructuring gate operations oversight and implementing comprehensive personnel reform. This includes..." He hesitated before continuing. "Mandatory bias and conflict of interest training, independent oversight committees, and the termination of any staff found complicit in outside interference." Rachel's gaze swept the room. This was more than corporate damage control. It was the beginning of a systemic shift. But Ethan wasn't done. He glanced at Rachel, who nodded once. The next set of documents appeared on the screen. "This interference," Ethan continued, "was only possible because cross-development knew exactly where my wife would be and when. That information came from inside Carter Global Holdings, from someone trusted." The room fell silent. Ethan's voice dropped slightly, but the steel in it carried. "I am not in the business of speculation. I am in the business of facts. And the fact is, One of my own executives passed Alyssa's itinerary directly to Cross Development. He turned his head slightly toward the cluster of Carter Global executives seated in the front row. "Mr. Jameson Cole," Ethan said evenly, "you've been with this company for 12 years. You were part of the final security clearance team for the acquisition deal, and you leaked my wife's schedule." The cameras swung instantly to Jameson, who looked pale but defiant. "This is outrageous." Ethan didn't raise his voice. "We traced the data packet from your terminal, Jameson. Cross paid you through an offshore account. Your career here is over. Legal action is pending." The press room erupted. Rachel stepped forward, her voice smooth. "With the removal of compromised personnel, Carter Global Holdings and Atlantic Airways are moving forward together. We will not allow outside interference to derail critical deals or to endanger our people." The energy in the room shifted. Reporters who had been circling like sharks now smelled blood in the water, but it wasn't Ethan's. On social media, the turn was instantaneous. "Carter clears, the air climbed to #1. Cross Exposed began trending within minutes. Justice. For Alyssa surged again, stronger than before. The narrative had flipped 180 degrees. Ethan stepped back to the podium for the closing statement. "We will close our acquisition on schedule. We will implement reforms at Atlantic Airways. And to the public, I say this: when you try to destabilize our company by targeting my family, you will fail, every time." The room exploded with questions. Cameras flashed. But the message had already landed. At Gate C-17, the incident had started as a humiliation. Now, it was a turning point, with the public watching not just in shock, but with satisfaction. 3 weeks after the press conference that flipped the public narrative, the ripple effects had turned into tidal waves. At Carter Global Holdings, the billion-dollar acquisition deal closed on schedule, stock price stabilizing and even climbing as the reforms at Atlantic Airways were announced. Cross Development, once a formidable rival, was floundering. William Cross sat in his sleek office overlooking Manhattan, staring at a news ticker that seemed almost mocking. Carter Global Holdings secures landmark deal. Cross Development declines. Comment on failed acquisition. The deal William had positioned himself to disrupt had not only gone through, it had expanded Carter Global's reach. His own company's shares were plummeting. The media was circling with questions about the financial grants secretly funneled to Atlantic Airways. And worse, investigators were now tracing those shell companies right back to Cross Development's financial core. The next week, Cross Development filed for bankruptcy protection. William Cross's personal assets were seized pending investigation. For the man who had tried to humiliate Ethan Carter through Alyssa, the fall was absolute. At Atlantic Airways, the cleanup continued. Susan Parker, once the immaculately composed senior flight attendant, found her name permanently linked to Gate C-17 in every search engine. The investigation concluded she had acted under inappropriate influence from outside parties. Her certifications were revoked. No airline would hire her again. She left the industry quietly, the professional mask gone, replaced by the weary resignation of someone who'd played a game far bigger than she understood. Michael Grant didn't fare much better. His complicity with Cross Development made him a public example. With William Cross gone, there was no one left to shield him. His career in aviation collapsed overnight, and no corporate rescue would come. Meanwhile, life for Ethan and Alyssa Carter took a very different turn. 2 months after the incident, they welcomed their daughter, Grace Carter, in a private wing of St. Luke's Hospital. The press, once camped outside their building, had moved on to new scandals. In the quiet of their home, Ethan sat in the nursery, rocking Grace while Alyssa watched from the doorway. The air was peaceful, a rare moment of stillness after months of calculated warfare. It was in that quiet moment that Alyssa spoke softly. "You never seemed surprised. Not once. Not when Susan blocked me, not when Michael stalled, not even when Cross showed his hand. You were already moving before I called you." Ethan's lips curved faintly as he glanced at her. Because I already knew. Alyssa tilted her head. Knew what? That Cross was going to make a move. That someone in our own company was compromised. I didn't know the exact form it would take, but I knew they'd try to create instability before the deal closed. He shifted Grace gently, his voice calm, so I waited for them to act. Her brows furrowed slightly. You waited for them to target me? Ethan met her gaze steadily. I trusted you to hold your ground, and I trusted myself to make sure that when they did act, they'd expose themselves. Every step after your call was exactly what they couldn't resist. Public humiliation, recorded evidence, and a trail they couldn't bury. Alyssa exhaled slowly, processing. You set the stage, for them to walk right into it. Ethan's voice was quiet, almost reflective. In my world, you don't win by blocking every strike. You win by letting the other side swing so wide, they fall into their own trap. Across the city, the public was still buzzing, not with anger, but with satisfaction. The final act of Cross Development's downfall had become a case study in corporate sabotage gone wrong. On social media, hashtags that had once been weapons against Alyssa now read like victory banners. #justice. For Alyssa, #Carter, wins #Cross Falls Ryan Cole, whose live stream had started it all, released a final video titled, The Gate That Changed Everything. His audience, now in the millions, flooded the comments with a single sentiment: satisfaction. In the nursery, Alyssa crossed the room and sat beside Ethan. You know, she said softly, most people think what happened at Gate C-17 was a PR miracle. Ethan smiled faintly. It wasn't a miracle. It was a plan. Alyssa shook her head with quiet amusement. Remind me never to get on your bad side. He looked at her, his expression softening. You never will. Grace stirred slightly in his arms, the smallest sound in the peaceful room. Outside, the world was still loud, still chaotic, still ruthless. But in this space, in this moment, it was quiet. And for Ethan and Alyssa Carter, the fight was over. They had not only survived the attack, they had turned it into a decisive victory. The enemies had destroyed themselves. The deal was secure. Their family was intact. And somewhere, in the echoing silence left behind by William Cross's collapse, the message was clear. In Ethan Carter's world, those who struck at his family didn't just lose, they ceased to exist.